Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the Mind Muscle Connection podcast. Today is a solo episode, and I have a topic I want to dive into, and it's around supplementation. I feel like I haven't really talked too much about that recently, and so I want to hit on like why I think it is important to have some sort of supplementation in, and also go over who is at a higher need of supplementation, and then again, just some solid supplements that I find that for a lot of people, and then there are some targeted cases. So we're going to dive into all that today. But first, before I go into that, if you want to learn more about body recomp, what it is, how to do it, the 10 things you need to do, two different types of body recomp, why it's important to focus on body comp over just scale weight, then I have my free checklist there. And so those will give you actionable steps to where you can get going and make sure you're headed in the right direction there. And so the link to that is in the show notes. Again, is completely free. So make sure you go and check that out. All right. So with that out of the way, let's dive into today's topics. Again, what I want to talk about is supplements. And this is just a very polarizing topic, and I haven't talked about it much, and I want to go over, I'll sometimes talk about certain supplements, but largely don't put a huge emphasis on that in the podcast. It's definitely interesting, and I do think there's some use cases for supplementation, but really we have these two extremes. So I feel like this happens a lot with fitness topics, and you have people on one end of the spectrum where they think that supplements are magic, and that's always like the first thing that they're going to. It's, hey, what supplements should I take? I'm thinking about getting back in my health and fitness routine. What supplements do you recommend I take? And so you have people on that end of the spectrum. Then you have people on the other end of the spectrum that are like, supplementation is a complete waste. All you need is to train, have good nutrition, have a good, well, which would be a good diet, train hard, recover, and you're good to go. And I also think that that is not necessarily the right way to go about it. And so I think the truth is, like most things in health and fitness, is going to be somewhere in the middle. I don't think we don't want to rely on supplements. We certainly need to make sure that we are training, we're doing the lifestyle things, we're focusing on eating more whole foods, more protein, and that's going to be super important. Like we definitely need that. But in saying that, as we're going to talk about today, there's definitely a need for supplementation. And if your budget allows for it, that's always something I consider with clients is their budget. You don't want to just go in and throw a bunch of supplementation on them. Then there's definitely some things that I think we could try and we can add in. And as a good base, I want to try and get people to get to that point. We have foundational supplements, but then we want to be targeted with what we're doing. We don't just want to take a bunch of random supplements because you heard that X is good. And so now I'm just going to take that. And then you end up with 40 different supplements that you need to take. And now it's like, which one's working? Is it even working now at this point? Are you doing too much? So again, that's ultimately what we want to avoid here, is just going too far on the extreme and just taking anything and everything there. So let's dive into it. So why would we supplement at all? How I'm going to break this up is part one's going to be why we want to supplement, why I think it's beneficial. And then I want to go over modern challenges that are going to increase needs to supplement. And then I want to talk about supplements I use most, and then the approach, and then some other key things there. So let's first start with why supplement at all. So even with a great diet, so you're eating mostly whole foods, modern challenges are going to increase our nutrient needs. So we're going to go over what those are here in a minute, but just understand that for most people, there's certain challenges in today's modern environment that are going to require you to likely need a little bit more vitamins and minerals. So there's that. So even if you have a perfect diet, it's really hard to hit everything that you really need through diets. That's going to require a lot of variability, the right cooking methods. And when I say a lot of variability in your diet from day to day, week to week. And that is somewhat challenging. I just find that, yes, I think it's good to switch up what you eat. You shouldn't necessarily eat the same thing day in and day out. But in today's modern environment, it's really hard to ask somebody who has a full-time job, kids, all these responsibilities, to have this super diverse diet. Again, that would be awesome, and we want to get to that point as much as we can, but it is very challenging to ask people to do that there. Now, some people, it's not as hard. They have access to different types of veggies, fruits, different types of foods. They have the time to do it. They enjoy cooking. But to me, that's more of a niche than it is for most people. And so, as I said, it is hard to get everything just through diet alone. So not only do we have these modern challenges that increase nutrient needs, but it's, even if we didn't, it still is tough to get it through diet alone. And that goes back to what I just said there. But with a poor diet, supplementation becomes even more important, in my opinion. We don't want that to be a thing. If I just eat a poor diet, I'll supplement my way to it and I'm good to go. We don't want to get to that point. Most people don't have a great diet in general when we look at diet quality, different types of nutrients. And so in that case, supplementation becomes even more important because you're likely missing out on vitamins and minerals. So lifestyle, medications, and aging can all increase demand. So depending on what we do, so as we age, we're likely going to be at a higher need of some sort of supplementation. As people age, they typically get on more medications that can increase your needs for certain vitamins and minerals. And then lifestyle habits are going to play a role there with that. Some nutrients are just nearly impossible to get in high enough amounts from food alone. So couple of those would be like vitamin D, omega-3s, creatines. Even if we eat a great diet, there's still going to be some nutrients that are going to be tough to get. So like something like vitamin D, we can get it through the sun, not just through the diet, but for some people that is a challenge, and especially like in the winter months and things like that. But vitamin D is super important, especially for like bone health for women over 40, 30, 40 or higher. Like it's going to be super important for you. Creatine as well. So again, some nutrients are just no matter what, even if you have a very diverse diet, the most diverse diet ever, it's hitting all your, like, it's still going to be challenging to get it through food. Supplements can also be quick, easy wins to get people to start feeling better right away. And it does get them into a routine. So it's like, why would we not lean on that? So for yourself, whether you're just trying to get into it or you work with clients, or again, when I work with clients, it's like, if we can get you to start feeling better with certain supplements that we know are going to help somebody feel better, because they're likely because of the modern environment, it's like, just again, that's an easy win that we can have there to get people to feel better. And to me, if you can get people, if you can start to feel better, you're going to be more likely to continue to do what you're doing, versus if you come at it from a standpoint of you're just doing it because you're doing it because you feel like you have to and you don't feel great in the process. And then there's also performance related benefits. I guess with that, like, why supplement before I go into the performance side of things, just to feel better. So that goes into what I just said. Like, it can be an easy way to help you feel better if you're lacking on certain vitamins, minerals. Like magnesium is a big one that we're going to go over today. That's one that's hard to get through the diet, and it plays a role in so many processes in the body. And if that's off, you're likely not going to feel as good there. So it's like, why would we not put that in? So to feel better would be a way to supplement. And then performance, from a like training performance standpoint, again, if you have the discretionary income, performance is super important to you, then adding in some of these supplements, it's like, again, why would we not? Because they can help with performance. Now, as I've said throughout, everything else that the lifestyle factors, the nutrition, the training, like those are still the most important. You can't supplement your way out of having poor circadian health and 4 hours of sleep. Like, it's just not going to happen there. So we need to make sure that we still have those on there. But again, performance would be a reason to supplement as well. All right, so let's talk about, so those would all be reasons. I'm sure there's more reasons why people would supplement, but those are the biggest ones as to why I would see why we would want somebody to supplement. One thing that you won't see on here on this list of that is fat loss related purposes. Yes, or to me, most supplementation should be around like vitamins and minerals and making sure that you have enough of those. Like there's not really any over-the-counter supplements that are going to have a drastic impact on, say, like fat loss or muscle gain. Like creatine is going to help. And again, indirectly, all these micronutrients, if we have these gaps and we fill them in with supplementation, it's going to put your body in a better position to build muscle and lose body fat. But nothing's going to be anything that just magically makes that happen. Really, the only thing out there from a fat loss perspective that's going to be super helpful with fat loss is going to be like a GLP-1. And there might be some things out there that are more indirect and they can help with, whether that be, again, there's really nothing out there like green tea. Like, for example, green tea has some research behind it that it can help with weight loss. But again, these are very modest things and it's not this drastic change. And even fat burners, right? Like those aren't going to drastically increase your ability to lose body fat. It may help you and it may push you towards that. But again, I would say that these vitamins and minerals are going to be higher on the priority list because they're going to set your body and put your body in better position to do that. Now, from there, as I said, GLP-1s are going to be things that are going to have a huge impact on your ability to lose body fat because they are very powerful and they really do blunt people's appetites, and it makes it easier to get into energy deficit in order to lose body fat. So that is like the strongest one on the market, that you can't just get that in a supplement store. And then from a muscle building standpoint, again, a supplement, and you wouldn't necessarily count these as supplements either. They're medications. That, and then you have performance enhancing drugs, right? Like any sort of anabolic. Yeah, that's going to put you in a much better position to build muscle for sure. But again, that's not a supplement. And then things like HRT, again, these will be things that can help you, but they're more, you can't just get them at a supplement store there. All right, so let's talk modern challenges that increase nutrient needs. So first is just going to be when we look at most like processed foods. So most people are eating a diet that's higher in processed food. And so it's going to have a lot of calories, but it's going to have few nutrients in it. You're not going to have, like, some of them are fortified, yes, but most foods that we eat are not going to have the vitamins and minerals, fiber, et cetera, that we need. And so that right off the bat is going to increase the need for people to add in some sort of supplementation. If you look at their diet, now, say if it's 50-50 or even 70, like you're likely going to need some sort of supplementation. Again, we'll talk about what those foundations are and some that I would potentially add in. But if your diet is higher in processed food, now you likely have some sort of a micronutrient deficiency or mineral deficiency, and we're going to need to potentially supplement that. Then we have soil depletion. So less mineral rich crops today versus decades ago. So modern farming has shifted focus toward yield and shelf life. And over time, that's reduced the concentration of certain minerals in our food. So again, you can still get a lot from high quality diet, but some nutrients like magnesium, selenium, zinc may be harder to cover through food alone, which is where like supplementation can help. Just right off the bat, the soil's a bit more depleted, so we might not be getting as much micronutrients. So again, just right off the bat there, even if you do eat a healthy diet, might be in need of some more supplementation there. High stress. So stress is going to burn through vitamins and minerals, especially your magnesium, B vitamins, vitamin C, antioxidants. So again, if you're higher stress, or you have a lot of stress on the body, again, we're likely going to need some sort of supplementation there. Poor sleep, again, same thing here. You're just going to have greater nutrient demand, whether that be from stress on the body, whatever it is. We're likely going to need to add in some supplementation if you have poor sleep. Now, this doesn't mean, hey, if you have one night of poor sleep, you need to add in all the supplementation, or maybe you don't have the greatest sleep. Now you need to add in add in supplementation. It's usually a combination of these things, right? The more of these things that you have and more of these things that you notice on this list that apply to you, you're likely going to benefit from at least the foundational supplements that I'm going to talk about. Alcohol. So alcohol is going to block absorption, and it can also increase the loss of key nutrients as well. And again, we're typically looking at all the vitamins, B vitamins, antioxidants, vitamin D, again, and your minerals, magnesium, everything like that. So again, when we consume alcohol, and the more often we do it, we're going to be at a higher need of adding in some micronutrition through supplementation or a higher quality diet. Like you definitely do that. But as we talked about, that's not going to fill everything. If you have higher training volumes, so if you like to train a lot, right? So athletes or even regular gym goers may need some supplementation just because you'll burn through micros faster. Again, potentially from like an electrolyte standpoint, if you sweat a lot, potentially some just your electrolytes in general, right? So again, higher training volumes are going to increase the need for supplementation in terms of like your micronutrients and stuff. Fat loss dieting. So restricted food variety in general, as we talked about, is going to decrease it, but you're eating less calories, and so less of a chance that you get the micronutrients in and the vitamins and minerals that you need, which is going to increase your need for supplementation. Then we have medications, right? So many deplete specific vitamins and minerals. So let's take some statins. I'll talk about statins and what supplement's going to be super helpful for that. But again, that's it. I'll just go over it now. That's going to deplete CoQ10 in the body. So we need to make sure that we supplement with that if you're on a statin. Magnesium, looking at my notes, the next thing there. Metformin. So people that are on metformin is going to deplete B vitamins, right? PPIs. Again, these are all going to be things that may deplete specific vitamins and minerals. And then we talk about GLP-1s. So we could put GLP-1s in here. It's not necessarily, at least I don't know off the top of my head of any vitamins and minerals specifically that it's going to deplete. But the issue is now we go back to the fat loss dieting thing, right? So again, if something blunts your appetite and it causes you to consume less food, now you're going to be hey, you may need to supplement with some micronutrition in that process, right? So you could lump GLP-1s into this as well too. And not because it necessarily depletes anything specific, but you're just not getting in the nutrients that you need. Birth control is another common one, right? So this is going to have effects on B vitamins, your antioxidants, magnesium, zinc. So, if you're on birth control, you're likely going to need to do some sort of supplementation to supplement that. Menopause and aging, so higher micronutrient needs there, potentially higher protein as well in the aging population, right? Which can be tough to get through the diet for some people who are older. So you need to look at that. Gut and digestive changes could also increase the need for micronutrition. Lower stomach acid, for example, is something that could cause an issue there. And then dietary restriction. So vegan, dairy-free, whatever it is, any sort of dietary restriction is likely going to increase your need to supplement certain supplements, right? So the common ones are vegan, dairy-free. It's like now you're missing out on calcium, other vitamins and minerals. So and you take just anything that's really going to cut out entire food groups would be something that you would want to look at there. So those are the big challenges that are going to increase need. So like I said, the more you have on here, the higher your need, and the more likely it is like you're going to need some sort of supplementation. The less you have on here, well, a good diet gets you most of the way here if you're not doing any of these things. But even then, as I talked about earlier, you may still need some supplementation. So let's talk about supplements that I use most with clients. So this isn't a full list. This is just the common ones that I'll actually recommend. There's obviously going to be more. And again, for super targeted cases, there could be other ones that we look at. But these are just going to be the most common that I found myself recommending based on just client feedback, right? So when we look at the people that I typically work with, you're going to be 30 plus. They enjoy training. Most of them do, not everyone. And you do have this blend of some people who they train regularly, but then you have some people who really enjoy training, so they train a lot more. And then some people that train closer to moderate amount, but they're all full-time jobs, a lot of responsibility. So just, I think it's important to go over that. Who I typically work with there. So for the foundation, so this is typically, when I say foundations, this is going to be for 99.9% of people. We're going to add these in right off the bat, just based on, again, what I've seen, just what I've learned over time. And when we look at food and what are the highest needs, and also what's going to have the biggest impact on the body as well. So foundations, I'm going to start with with magnesium. So magnesium is going to be one that we're going to look at here, right? So it's involved in 300 plus processes in the body, including muscle contraction, sleep regulation, and stress resilience. It's often depleted by stress, poor diet, or training demands, and everything else we went over. So this is why magnesium is one of the foundational supplements that I have for people. Next on the list is going to be fish oil, so omega-3. So it's going to support brain health, heart health, inflammation control, and recovery. And again, it's tough to get in optimal doses unless you eat fatty fish multiple times per week, which is tough for people. So I think, again, this is a safe bet to add in for most people there. And we have vitamin D, so crucial for immune health, hormones, bone health, and mood. Most people don't get enough through sunlight, especially in winter or if they work indoors. So definitely something that we would want to look at there. And then a good multivitamin, right? So this is going to cover the basis for small nutrient gaps, especially if diet variety is limited. Think of this as insurance, not necessarily a replacement for food. So a good multivitamin is going to be something that we would look at, and I think very beneficial for people. Creatine, right? With creatine, it's tough to get through diet, like it is found in meat and stuff like that, but you're not going to get as much. And so creatine is especially helpful for many people, especially women in particular. And then obviously as women get older, so that's on the list. To me, it's just one of those, it's not super expensive and most people could benefit from it. So might as well take it. Obviously, like supplementing with protein powder, just because it's a way to help people get more protein in, because that can be challenging. It's not that people are deficient in protein per se. It's just that protein is going to be something that it's tough to get as much as we around that 1 gram per pound of body weight through just food. So it's nice to have that powder. All right. So those are the foundations. That's where I'm starting most people. And by just getting on that, it's like you're going to have your base covered. When we look at price, pretty much all these are relatively cheap except for fish oil, and multis can run somewhat expensive there. But it's tough because fish oil is super important. And so definitely something that, again, from a budget standpoint, we obviously want to be realistic there, but it would be nice. That is one that I think is important, but it can be a little bit more on the expensive side. So if that's the case, potentially increasing your fatty fish consumption can be a way to decrease the risk of that. And then let's go to like performance. So performance related supplements that I'll typically recommend. Again, this is not a comprehensive list, and there might be some others that are beneficial. But when I look at what I think is actually worth it, these would be the ones. So caffeine, obviously caffeine is going to be great for performance, whether that be in the gym or just performance in like a mental thing that you need to do. So caffeine, beta alanine. So it helps with efforts that last anywhere from 1 to 3 minutes, maybe a little bit longer than that. So it's more useful for like endurance type or like metabolic type training. It's if you're weight training, it may not be helpful, but if you do those, anything in that, like I said, 1 to 5 minute kind of time range can be super helpful there. And it has a lot of research to back it up. And then electrolytes. This is a hot topic lately. I don't think everyone just needs to blindly take electrolytes, but if you're someone who sweats a lot and you train a lot, I do think taking some electrolytes are going to be super helpful for you. Or even if you are just like super low and you're just not, again, you have certain dietary restriction, things like that. And the reason I throw it in performance is because just being even a little bit dehydrated can impact performance. Some people group in like citrulline here. It's like a pre-workout. Again, it's just nothing that's going to drastically increase performance. So yeah, so that's why I just cuffed it to these three. Those are going to be the most common. Pre-workout's going to have some of these things mixed into it, right? It's going to maybe have a little bit of beta alanine, a little bit of caffeine, maybe some creatine, some L-citrulline. Obviously, if you drink your pre-workout, that's going to help you with hydration. So with that, I'm not anti-pre-workout. It's just now when we look at needs, it's likely low on the priority list. This was something that in my 20s, it was like, oh yeah, pre-workout's freaking awesome. It's part of the routine. But now that I know that, again, when we look at pre-workouts, the main ingredient is going to be caffeine in them. Yes, they'll have some of these extra things in it. Like it'll have creatine, but the issue with the creatine is it enough? And then also that would require you to, with creatine, you need to take it pretty much every day. It's not something that you're just going to have this, you're going to take it once and you're going to have this acute effect of performance. So you would need to take that creatine regularly for it to be beneficial. So in a pre-workout, I just don't think it does much. Again, L-citrulline will help with like things like the pumps and blood flow and things. So that may be helpful for certain things. It will have some beta alanine in it. But again, if we're not doing something that's 1 to 3 minute effort or longer, it's not really going to be doing much. If anything, it's just going to be that tingling of effect. So when we look at pre-workouts, it's just low on the priority list for most people. And if anything, if you have it later in the day and you already take a lot of caffeine, it might do more harm than good. And you're not really going to get any benefits from the caffeine because you've already taken a ton of caffeine for the day. And they're not necessarily cheap. I think they're going to go like 30, $50 for 20 to 30 servings. So again, just something that I am not going to tell clients that they need to spend their money on. If you enjoy it, you're smart with the timing of it. You find one that maybe doesn't have caffeine if you're going to have it later in the day, and it does give you some hydration because you're drinking water before your workout and you feel better there, then I would say it's worth it. But I wouldn't put it high on the priority list. And I wouldn't put it over a lot of these supplements there. But again, when it comes to performance, man, it's just really hard to find things over the counter that are drastically going to increase your performance. And most of it's just going to come from recovery, staying hydrated, eating some food around your workouts, if that works for you, depending on when you work out. So let's talk stress, recovery, and sleep. So we have ashwagandha, so an adaptogen that may reduce stress, improve recovery, and even support testosterone and performance in some studies. Not sold on that. Could it be from the stress reduction? Who knows? But definitely would not lean on the testosterone side of things. But I think the big thing is it can reduce stress and improve recovery. And so it does work best when stress is chronically high. So this is probably something that I would not necessarily take all of the time. Cycling through it, I think, can be helpful just because some people I've heard of reports of people saying things like because people this just weird, like they don't have any drive for anything when they take it for extended periods of time. And like you just kind of this like meh feeling there. So while it can maybe reduce anxiety and stress and things like that, it can potentially have that. And if you have confirmed low cortisol, it may not be as beneficial. So we'd want to potentially look out for that. This was one that I was pretty high on for a while, and I've used it less and less for people, but again, it can be beneficial. Rhodiola, I do like rhodiola a lot. So it's an adaptogen that improves mental and physical fatigue, stress resilience, and endurance performance. It can be helpful during high workload or training phases, or just high stress load, and you need to maintain some energy and like avoiding that mental fatigue. So this was something that I took when we had our son. I found it to be super helpful, right? Like I was sleep deprived, high stress, and this did seem to help there. So L-theanine, it's naturally found in tea, but it promotes calm focus and can smooth out the jittery edge of caffeine. Also used for relaxation and sleep quality. So this is definitely one I've started pairing with caffeine, and I do find that it can be super helpful from that standpoint. And then I also have started recently take it before sleep as well, and I definitely have liked it. At least I started doing that probably in the last week or so, and it's actually been going really well. I did the first couple times I took it, I didn't get great sleep, so I was wondering if it was the L-theanine or if it could have been something else, right? There's a million things that go into it, but as of right now, I find that it's helping there. And then melatonin is an interesting one, but melatonin is one from a sleep perspective that I do think can be helpful. It can help regulate circadian rhythm and improve sleep onset. It can be super useful for short term for like travel or disrupted sleep. The literature and just what people say, it's still out there in terms of something that you want to use regularly. I think if you're going to use it regularly, which I do, I think the lower the dosage, the better. There was a time in my life where I was probably taking up to 5 milligrams a night. That's way too much. Now I'm definitely closer to that, like 1 milligram. I think if you can get even less than that, that's likely good. Again, melatonin it's interesting because, but what it's not going to do though is it's not like a hormone where your body's not going to be able to produce it on its own, right? Melatonin has a huge light component to it. And so one of the best things we can do to naturally increase melatonin is watch your light exposure at night. That's going to be the big thing there with that. Your body's not going to not produce it because you took supplementation there. It also is a good antioxidant. It has a lot of antioxidant properties, and which can be helpful for people that do have like high oxidative stress, high stress load in general. So something there, and even for women over 40, 50, I think it can be beneficial. Saying that, if you don't feel like you need it nightly, definitely don't do that. And again, its best use cases are going to be short-term travel or disrupted sleep there. And remember, with this stress recovery sleep, what would cause me to use this for people would be, hey, we have our base covered. We got a lot of our basics in place, but we're finding stress is high or maybe sleep's impacted, or you're just going through a stressful time. Then it would be like, hey, let's add these in there. Or maybe you're someone that you're like me, you do like some caffeine. It can sometimes cause you to get fairly jittery. Then maybe adding in some theanine. But we don't want this. What we don't want to do is we don't want to mask bad habits for supplements. So that's one where now I'm leaning into that's a bad habit type thing that now I'm supplementing with that, right? So we do want to be careful going too far down the extreme there with that. And then same thing with like rhodiola or ashwagandha. We still want to focus on managing our stress as best as we can, but these can be things that can help. So when I come back to why would we supplement, it could be a quick, easy win to get somebody to feel better. So again, if somebody does take rhodiola and now they're able to, during a stressful time, they're able to do more, they feel better, that's going to be a big win. Right. Same thing with the, or even melatonin. And then we have like gut/targeted cases. So these are where this is going to be super targeted. Not that, again, performance would be super targeted. So would stress and recovery, but these are some other just random targeted ones. So probiotics, I do think they can be helpful. They can support gut health, digestion, immunity by balancing the microbiome. It is strain specific. So benefits depend on the formula. So it's not like you just take, like, not all probiotics are created equal. Another one that I've been bullish on lately is digestive enzymes. So this helps break down food, especially protein and fat. So it's more useful for people over 40, those with low stomach acid, or who feel like overly full and bloated after meals. So if you're someone who, like, you eat, you get full super quick, you feel like food sits in your stomach like a rock, then you may be someone that could benefit from some digestive enzymes. Now, in saying that, as we age, we naturally lower, like, stomach acid will tend to lower in most people, right? So this could easily be something that to add in when you're over, as you start to get older, and if you have high stress there. So berberine, so this is one that improves blood sugar regulation, insulin sensitivity, and can even help with cholesterol. And it's sometimes compared to metformin in terms of its effect. So if you, again, have any sort of like insulin resistance, high blood sugar, berberine can be a nice addition without having to take metformin, and the downside of metformin with depleting B vitamins and things like that. Which, again, obviously metformin you need to get prescribed by a doctor. You can't just go and get that. But berberine is over the counter that you can get, and it is compared to metformin in terms of it, when they look at the research between the two. So berberine can be super helpful. So again, who would benefit from that? Well, probably, if you do, again, high insulin sensitivity, high blood sugar. Again, we look at women over 40. I think this can be a super helpful addition there. NAC, which is N-acetylcysteine, can support liver health, antioxidant status, and immune function, often used for recovery from illness or high stress. So again, this could be something we add in. If you just are having a lot of stress on your body, NAC can be super helpful. Definitely helpful during illness. And then, like I said, high stress, or if you do just find that you have like super high training load, you just have high oxidative stress or high stress on the body, I think NAC can be super helpful. Collagen can be helpful for some people. So it provides amino acids that support joint, tendon, skin, and connective tissue health. Works best when paired with vitamin C. But we don't want it to replace protein powder, like whey protein, for the muscle building standpoint. I think from a joint and tendon standpoint, maybe even some skin, can be super helpful there. But that's, again, going to be low on my priority list. And then you have CoQ10. So coenzyme Q10. So it supports mitochondrial function and energy production. It's also beneficial for heart health, older adults, or anyone on statins, which can deplete CoQ10 like we talked about earlier. So CoQ10, I think, is a great one as well. Again, older adults on statins, and it can help with heart health as well too. Now, one note that I want to make here is not all supplements are created equal. So you need to be careful. You need to look at brands. You need to look at types of supplements. The most common one that I'll bring up is magnesium oxide versus magnesium glycinate. Oxide it's cheap and it's poorly absorbed by the body. So it's a lot of supplement companies will put oxide in there, and now you're not going to get as much benefit from it. So we do need to look at types. We also need to look at dose. 1,000 IU of vitamin D versus 10,000 IUs is different. So we also need to look at dosing of these things. A few things to look at and understand that not all supplements are created equal. The biggest thing is you do recommend certain supplements because I know what's in them. I know it's a quality brand, and a lot of times you'll still get people that go off and just search on Amazon and get the cheapest one that they can find. Again, you're better off paying an extra $10 for a supplement that we know is high quality versus one that you can get for $10 cheaper on Amazon that may not be as high quality. I'm not going to sit here and say which ones are and which ones aren't, because that's not a scope of this podcast, and that would take me forever. And so again, if you do have any specific questions, I'd be more than happy to answer that. Just give me a follow on FHOEHN. All right. So what's the approach with clients? So we want to start with the foundation. Always want to start there, unless in their intake form, there's something else or they gave me blood work, right? And we can see if there's anything off from there. But from there, I get more targeted based on their goals. So whether it's fat loss, muscle gain, performance, and their health markers. Also looking at their biofeedback. So sleep, stress, digestion, recovery. So for example, let's say I have a female who's in her 40s. She's complaining of maybe some bloating. And then I ask follow-up questions. Hey, food sits in my stomach like a rock, especially when I eat higher protein. All right, maybe getting in some digestive enzymes will be helpful on top of our lifestyle practices and the foundational supplements. Then maybe I get someone that they come in, they're like, yeah, it's a super stressful time, but I know I need to work out. All right, maybe we're going to add in some rhodiola there on top of the basics. And then obviously basing it off of lab work, and that's available. So again, the key supplements are not foundation. Training, nutrition, lifestyle come first, but supplements do support and fill gaps, and do think that most people need to have some sort of supplementation, at least from the foundation standpoint, because again, they're not going to fix a poor diet or lifestyle, but they also are not useless. And for most people, they're the missing link that fills gaps, supports recovery, and helps you feel better and perform better. Again, definitely pro supplement in the right context. The context is super key. However, I do think from a foundation standpoint, the foundations are safe and they're likely going to have a high return on investment in most cases there. And again, maybe over time we find that certain ones are not worth it to you, and maybe you don't necessarily need to take all the foundation ones, right? So yeah, so that's this tip for this episode. I hope this was helpful. Let me know if you guys have any questions, and I'll chat with. Two things. Make sure you give me a follow on Instagram, Jeff, HOEHN _. And then if you found this podcast to be helpful in any way, if you could leave a rating and review, and that will help more people find it. Talk to you soon.